Well, you've seen this guy, John Higgins, running up and down the basketball court over the winter months for the last 35 years, calling NCAA Division I basketball games. In fact, he has officiated 9 national semifinals and 2 national championship games in the NCAA. But what you may not know about John Higgins is he is an exceptionally talented business owner. Back in 1987, he started a company called Weatherguard, also known today as Rooferees, that puts on gutters and siding and roofs. And he has built that from nothing, on top of balancing all of his basketball duties and having a few other entrepreneurial ventures. In this episode, you're going to learn some key things from John. First off, how he dealt with crisis management in 2017 with his business. Also, how to make sure you're getting referrals for your business. And lastly, he's got a company really built on a family culture and how he deals with those relationships, not just with family, but those not within his family who work for the company and how he makes that work. It is a fascinating episode. And of course, our producer, Grace Dunbar, has helped bring this to you. Please enjoy Leadership Lessons from Mayberry. All right, we got a lot of road to cover here, John. I'm telling you what, you've got a unique, interesting, fascinating road that we're gonna cover. But before we get to the whole business part and your officiating career, we got to start first off with your Mayberry. So tell us what your Mayberry was growing up.
My Mayberry was the Cathedral area. We grew up at 38th in California. My dad and my dad was a teacher and coach at Cathedral for 20 years, from like 1953 to 73. Then he left, and we stayed there and went to. My dad went to Bryan High School for a few years. Then he ended up going to Roncalli, but our family grew up in the Cathedral area, and now 15 years ago, we lived out west, my wife and I, and we moved back to the area. I live 2 blocks from where I grew up right now.
So when I hear Omaha Cathedral, I think a couple things. One is fish fries. Fish fries part of the family fabric?
Fish fry, well, yeah, we did it every Friday, obviously.
Yeah.
And then when Cathedral shut theirs down, Holy Name had theirs. So we go over to Holy Name's fish fry, and that was unbelievable. But it's been a big community thing. That's why I moved back to the neighborhood.
Yeah. I've had such a host of guests on, and some of them grew up in small towns, right? And they got the Sandlot right next door, the park right next door. I've had some folks who have obviously grown up in bigger communities. What was it like as a 12-year-old, middle of the summer, July, in Omaha? Tell me a typical day, what it was like for you.
Well, my best friend lived up the street. They had 15 kids. Another really good friend, Don Wood, he lived down the street. They had 13 kids. So our neighborhood was, if you had anything under 8 kids, there was something wrong with you. So we had the toughest kick to can games in Duchesne Academy. We had the Little League baseball games over in the park, Bemis Park, and Cathedral's baseball. And then my dad, of course, we had the keys to the high school gym. So we would, myself and I get all my buddies, we'd have 20, 30 kids in there, and we'd go play basketball in the gym. No supervision, just us and the kids. The only thing my dad didn't know is we had the candy room key, and we got in there and we had a really good time.
Raided the candy room. I love it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we did.
You got to have a little mischievous there.
Oh, absolutely.
So basketball, was it your deal? I mean, did you know? Because I know Cathedral. I think of Tim Cannon, who coached there as well, and your father had a great run.
Yeah.
So was it your deal, or were you thinking baseball, football?
No, I played all sports, but basketball was my love. I guess of all the sports, that was probably the best sport I was at. So I was just a basketball junkie, and I loved to watch it. Of course, every kid thinks, "Oh, I'm gonna go to college and I'm gonna go to the NBA," and that's just everybody's thought until you really get there and think, let me see. I'm 6'3". I don't jump that good. I'm not that fast, and I'm just okay shooter. So You learn pretty quickly that you're just not, you may not be cut out for that.
You know, as we all get older, right, we all say, boy, it's such a shame with this generation. You know, they got the video games. They don't get outside. But I do think there's something to be said for the way we grew up.
Oh, yeah.
And it also sounds like this big Catholic neighborhood you grew up in.
Yeah.
There was a lot of arms around all of you guys and gals in that neighborhood.
A lot of eyes.
Talk a little bit about that.
A lot of eyes. I could remember the time that my best friend John Kirby and I, which started our business together, we borrowed $20 from his mother's purse. And back in 1970, whatever it was, 72, 73, 74, somewhere in that ballpark, we went down to Arlen's and then went to Food City and we bought some bunch of G.I. Joes and all this kind of stuff and candy and stuff. And then we're at my house and we were sitting on the floor and my mom called his mom and said, "Hey, did you give the boys some money to go?" And she said, "No." So anyway, long story short, they get home. I can remember I was up there still, and Mr. Kirby called, and really didn't call. He put us in the corner, pulled our pants down, and whipped us. And my mom they didn't say one word to us. And John had to stay in his room for like 2 or 3 days with just crackers and water. True story.
That was discipline.
That was true story.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
But that was our neighborhood. Moms and dads took care of other kids. It didn't matter the discipline part. It was if they're still one of my kids. That's what all the parents thought.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's what's great about a neighborhood, right? I mean, the old saying, "It takes a village." Clearly, you guys had that.
We had a village.
Yeah. You know, you talk about toughness, and you guys learn toughness in that neighborhood. You go on, have a good career in high school basketball, obviously, because you get a chance to play at University of Nebraska-Kearney, an NAIA school at that time.
Kearney State.
Kearney State, that's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
yeah.
And that, I'm an 86 graduate in high school. I should know that.
Yeah,
it was Kearney State.
Yeah.
So what was the decision for you? Because it's a full-time job in college to play any kind of sport. I don't care what level. Was it hard for you to make that decision, or did you know right away, look, if I get an opportunity, I'm going?
Yeah, my brother Tim played there, and he was an All-American there. He was a much better basketball player than I was, but it was pretty easy. I watched what they did and how they did it, and I wanted to be a part of it. And that was pretty simple decision. I had chances to go to UNO and a lot of other schools, but I want to follow that in that footstep. And I had an older sister that was at Kearney at the same time too.
So what's the one thing you took away from that? And when you look back on it and say, here's something that has stayed with me that I've learned from my playing days at Kearney that I've used in business, I've used in life. What's one of those lessons you pulled?
Probably discipline. Probably time management. Because, you had your school, you had your practice. Then I worked too. We had to work too.
What'd you do?
Actually, it wasn't a really hard job, but I ran mail back and forth between the campuses. Then I worked for the Butch Brown from Brown Transfer. They put me on little things to do for them, and so I worked for them also.
It was a trucking company, right?
Yeah, trucking company. Yeah, they were great people to me.
Yeah,
they actually, their family actually helped me get into business, gave me the money to buy my first dump truck.
And so that was your first business then, is in the trucking business?
Well, no.
Okay.
My first business was the roofing siding company. But they gave me $2,500 to buy a F-250, and that's one of the things that was the first big purchase I had, was that.
Well, before we get to that, we started talking about toughness. You played for Coach Heiser, who had a great run at Kearney State. But you also had an assistant coach at the time, a guy named Tom Kropp, who's kind of known for tough as nails. I mean, was a great player himself, played in the NBA, and then one of the things that he did is he had a lot of times his players come in and go one-on-one with him. You got to tell me a little bit about that encounter with Coach Kropp.
Well, I would never play one-on-one with him because he'd just destroy me. But we would pick up basketball at noon till 100. And it was we're all buddies, but during that time, that lunch hour, it was enemies. It was you bust your butt, and it was he would take legs out. It was crazy how tough, and he made everybody tough around him, and he made our team tough. And that was back, he was playing still. He'd play overseas and come back and play a lot of that lunch hour stuff, and he would destroy people and guys that are all Americans at Kearney State. He made them tougher, made them much better.
There is that balance between playing for a guy that's tough like that and embracing it. And then there are coaches who try to be tough, and it just never connects, right? The players or the kids are just like, I don't relate to it. Why, when you have those tough coaches, what did they have that still enabled them to connect and you appreciated playing for it?
Well, I think that's a really good question, but you saw how he played. He's played and coached the same way. It correlated to all the players. He's a lot of coaches will say toughness, talk toughness, but he showed it and displayed it and played it, and he coached the same way. Yeah,
so he role modeled it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So you get done with college at Kearney State, and it's time you jump in as a young person into the business world, and you get Weatherguard Rooferees going. I don't believe it was called Rooferees at the time.
It's called Weatherguard
Inc. Weatherguard, yeah.
Actually, the name of our company is Weatherguard Inc., but we branded it the Rooferees, and I can tell you a story about that later on with how we got that. But we started it that way. First, before I got into business, I sold windows and doors for Pacesetter Windows and Doors for about 6 months. But in high school, if we're going to go back that way, I did it. We did siding and guttering and stuff for my best friend and I that started this together. We did it in high school for his uncle, and that's how I got back in after I got back from college, and I sold windows and doors for the Schregers. And I'm like, this is all crazy hours, and people are coming chasing you, running down the street with you. I'm like, okay. When I knocked on the last door,
why would they run down the street after you?
Well, because you cold called them, you knocked on the door, and they would telemarket these people. They'd call them, and I don't know if you remember all this stuff.
Yes.
What they did, Pacesetter did, they would set up leads for you. Well, this guy told them no, but I was told yes, so I knocked on the door, and he started screaming and hollering at me, started yelling at me. I'm like, I ran away, got in the car, and I left. I'm like, I'm not. I could do this myself.
Yeah,
and that's how I started.
Right. Here's what I think is fascinating about you. There aren't many high school kids who knew. You had incredible work ethic. There's no doubt about that. But you're always dabbling in business in high school.
Yeah.
And did you know that was going to be your path? Was it more fun and competitive, or did you think, this is what I want to do?
I thought I was going to be a basketball coach and teacher. That's what I went to school for. But
when did that change?
When I coached for my dad at Roncalli, and I coached a freshman team, and it was, and I thought that was the fun part, but the dealing with the junior high kids was a different part. So I was like, I don't think this is going to be for me. So that's kind of when it changed, and I still did. We were doing the siding and guttering and stuff on the side.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know when you said what kind of got under your skin. I didn't know if you were going to say the junior high kids or the officiating.
Oh, well, that's good. That's a good point. Officiate. Hey, when I was a little kid, my older brothers were playing. Mike and Kelly were playing. I had one of my dad's games at David City Aquinas. I was 8 or 10 years old, and the referee told my dad that I was sitting by my mom, and that I had to tell that your son, he needs to shut up, and that was me. And I did not like referees. I was one of those just like my dad. He was the same way. He did not like referees.
Yeah, it's funny, and of course you go on to an absolutely celebrated career. 9 Final Fours you call in the NCAA, 2 national championship games. I think you called 30 years or 29?
35.
Yeah,
35 years Division I. Yeah.
Right. So
just finished that. Yeah.
That's a great percentage. So you go on. So you got your lesson early on from an official who put you in your place. It sounds like.
Oh yeah, I did. Yeah,
and you complied, huh?
I think I probably started crying. And then I sat next to my mother the rest of the game. I do remember that.
Well, here you go. You start off, and it's 1987, right, when Weatherguard starts?
Yeah. That's when the actually branding. I started in 85-ish, But 87 is when I think we incorporated and did that kind of stuff. So
legally,
yeah.
Yeah. So walk me through how you came to the concept of, hey, you want to do roofing, you want to do gutters, you want to do siding. Where did that emanate from? What inspired you?
Well, John Kirby and I were, we started siding together, and we actually did all the work. Mm-hmm. And then John graduated from UNO, and he left and I bought his equipment out for like $500, and it was just it just dawned on me like I could really turn this into something special. And started very slow. It was just me and another guy, and then it was me and 3 other guys, and then we got a big job, and I'm like, oh boy, I need to hire some people. And I didn't know how to do any of that stuff, but I hired some people anyway, and now I had to do, I still work with the guys. I worked with them every day. I did it for 8 or 10 years until I was in early 30s, and then I was like, this is getting a little bit hard on my body.
So you go out, if there's a roofing job, you may be on site then?
Oh, yeah, I was on site all the time.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we had maybe 6, 7 people, maybe with depending on the day. And it was tough trying to get everybody every day in that type of a business to show up. So, but I worked it every day for at least 10 years. Mm-hmm. And I broke my back, and I didn't break it physically. I mean, just physically, it was tough. It's really hard work when you're up and down a ladder, and you're carrying. Back then, we carried shingles up the ladder all the time. But I did it, and we did it till my 30s, and then we got a couple of really big jobs, and I had to hire more people, and that's when I had a couple guys come into my office and said, I can help you. And I hired those guys, and they've been basically with me ever since.
When you start this, entrepreneurs always seem to have a lot of the same ilk here, because a lot of times they just start and they say, hey, I want to own a business, but their long-term vision, their 3 to 5 year vision just isn't there. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like there was that point where you said, this is going to be something bigger than just myself, yeah, and me being the labor. I'm going to hire, and I'm going to work on the business versus in. Mm-hmm. How long into that process did that take before you had that vision? And again, was it just simply getting that big first client? It
probably was the first big client we got. I was like, oh, this can probably work. I wasn't making much money back then. Yeah. It was okay, but I kind of saw a light where I could make it work, and I could grow the business and make it bigger and stronger. And it was probably 5, 6, 7 years into it that I kind of saw that light. Now it took a little bit longer to get it, to grow it, to expand to where we're at now, but it was a process. And originally I didn't have that vision,
right?
But I watched other people, and not just in our same industry, but different industries, and saw how they did things, and I tried to emulate those kind of people, and it seems like it's worked.
So you're balancing, obviously, starting this company, which has been in place since 1987. You got an incredible foundation and team around you, but you're also going into officiating. Yeah. And your officiating schedule isn't light. I mean, you're going to be doing serious travel during it. Yeah. So how did you, again, was it very intentional where you sat down and said, here's how I'm going to make this work? Or was it something you just said, we're going to jump into this, we're going to make it work, and we'll figure it out later?
Well, I've been married for 32, 33 years now, so my wife was a big help. I mean, she, like when I started the basketball and doing the travel stuff, she helped a bunch in the business. Now she doesn't do so much anymore. My oldest son, Colin, fired her about 4 or 5 years ago, supposedly.
It'll be great Christmas time, won't it?
No, he's just kidding. It was like, hey, you're done, Mom. You got to get out of the office. Yeah. But she was a big help when I started traveling and getting more into the refereeing and doing the Division I stuff. That was a big help. But, at that time, we weren't as big. We didn't have as many jobs. In the wintertime we didn't work as much. So it kind of went hand in hand with business, with that type of business, and the officiating. So it went hand in hand.
So when you get to that point, though, because there's a lot of business owners out there who are like, look, I'm interested in owning more than just one entity. I want to have a couple of things going. I want to have more than a couple. In fact, you're also involved with property ownership as well. So what is your advice to them? How do you tell them this is how you make it work, having walked through this over the last 20 years or so?
Work, be disciplined, have a good partner. If you have a partner, whether it be a wife or a business partner, somebody you can trust. And a lot of people, like the people have been with me 15 to 25 years, are still with me.
Yeah.
And that's kind of unheard of in a small business like we have. My right-hand guy has been 25 years in my business. And if you look at our industry, they jump around like college basketball players from the portal to portal. They jump around, and my right-hand guy he's been tremendous.
So what have you done to create that culture and that atmosphere that he wants to stay there for 25 years?
It's a family type. It's truly a family business because I have an older sister that works for me. I have a brother-in-law who works for me. My son Colin works for me. My young son JJ, that's going to be a senior. He does part-time stuff in the summer. He works for us, and I've had family work for me over the years, nieces and nephews, and they've all worked for me at one time or another. So it's more of a family type industry. Even the guys that are out in the field, they feel like we're family. So it's truly it's a family business, and we treat it that way. But we also, it's gotten to be a little bit more corporate like also, but not nearly like a big company.
How do you make that person that isn't a family member, though? How do you make them feel part of it? What does that look like on a daily basis?
I talk to them. I call them. I call a lot of the guys all the time just to visit. How you doing? Where we at? How's the job going? And I don't know if that happens on from all companies. I don't know that, but I think that's a good way for them to feel like they're actually part of the building team and the building process of our company. And I think that has a long way to go with your business. It's been good for us.
So family can be fantastic, right?
Oh, yeah.
But there's also challenges that can be, can come with family. So do you have rules? Do you set down rules?
Yeah.
Is it more just they understand you as the owner well?
One thing I do, one of the things that I try to do, I don't try to micromanage anybody. I'll let them do what they want to do, and if I think that it's something that should change, or if they make a mistake in something, learn from that mistake and move forward. I'm not a screamer, not a yeller. Now once in a while it happens, but I let them do what they do. Try to show them the way how to do it, how we do it, and then let them do it. So I lead that way, I guess. I let them make mistakes and then learn from that mistake and then figure out how to fix it and move forward.
Yeah, and again, you talk about consistency. I've done about 15 shows, and it seems like the great owners who have these long-standing businesses, that's also a part, is that they train people to do the job, and then they sit back and let them do it. And they don't. I imagine you don't. When the small mistakes happen, it's just a teaching moment, right?
Yeah.
And do you even go back and teach? Do you just have so much trust that they know that they made a mistake?
No, they know they made a mistake. Yeah. You've read that book, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff.
Right.
I think it's one of the greatest books ever for that. And you can't sweat the small stuff because if you do, at least in the business world, I think you're gonna drive yourself crazy. So I don't do that anymore. Now my wife would really sweat the small stuff, which is good. She's a detailed person, very detailed. But I'm not as detailed because I don't in regards to that kind of stuff. But again, it's going to be okay. It's going to be there tomorrow. We'll fix it. It's not that big of a deal. Nobody's dying. We'll be okay. And that's how I've worked it.
So, I was reading something the other day, 50 to 80% of businesses, businesses have been, in place for over 5 years. 50 to 80% come for referrals. Sounds like that fits into your business. In fact, that number is a little bit higher. Why is that?
Well, I think we've done a good job over the years, and we people trust us, and trust is the biggest part of business. I've had people that I've done jobs for 3, 4, 5 times, and then they tell their family members or they tell their friends, and we do a good job. And referrals, if you keep doing a good job for those people that do referrals, you're going to get more referrals from those people, and it just spreads. It's just a good thing. And if you make a mistake, you go back and you answer your phone and you return a phone call. That's a big deal in our business, and any business, it's like that. But when you return phone calls and you do what you say you're going to do, that's pretty. That you'll get referrals. You will, and you do what you're going to do, and that's the one thing I always tell any of my people is return the phone call, do what you're going to do, and everything will be fine.
Yeah, and you go beyond Nebraska too. It sounds like you have business, outside of the state, which is certainly saying something that the word travels.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It does travel. We've done jobs in Michigan, in Tennessee, in New York, and just got back from Utah and Texas and different places. We do a specialty product that we've done really well with is Da Vinci products. So and that's a roof, right? That's a roofing product, yeah. And we've done we've done great at that, and people have referred us on that with architects, and so that's been a really win-win for us for that. And the basketball part of it has tied in with that from the national part of it, because anymore you Google a guy, you Google my name, and next thing you know, and he has this business, and he's also this referee that's done the Final Four, and it just ties in together.
Yeah, it does mesh well. Now let's talk about that sales process, though. Because your referral is so robust, do you need a strong inside sales presence? And if so, what does that look like? Or is something you don't necessarily need because the referral business is so strong?
I think our referral business is extremely strong. Now, we don't do it as like other companies probably do it. We don't have a sales force of 10 or 15 or 20 people. We don't have that. Mm-hmm. We'll have 4 or 5 guys, including myself, that just go and visit with the people and tell them our story. And we don't have to tell much of our story because they know our story. So we don't beat anybody up to get a job, and we try to not get beat up on our price. We set our margins, and if they want us, fine. If they don't, that's fine too, because as many years as we've been in business, 35 plus years, we've always had business, and we've always been busy.
Yeah, and I was watching your website the other day, and I saw the referral. It just came to life, and I don't think this was intentional. Kim Pavelka, who's one of your spokesmen, the great play-by-play guy for Nebraska basketball, and prior to that, football as well. He's interviewing a couple, and they talk about what you guys did and the trust that they had in your company. And then she just very spontaneously talks about she got a call from a friend who said, "Hey, I need a roof done, and I need a roof done quick." And she referred you guys. And so I think right there, I don't even know if you guys knew, but that was such a great promotion of Weatherguard, because that referral just came to life right in front of us.
Yeah. Yeah. And, Cleet's done a advertising for us too. Yeah. And we did his roof and helped him with his insurance company, and those kind of things with your ties with that is big with referral, because everybody knows everybody's a sports person, and they like to be tied with sports people. And you have a guy like with Cleet Blakeman that worked the Super Bowls before, and longtime NFL, good friend of mine. And his dad was an official, and I knew his dad, and just a great person. So those kind of things with referral business, and it's by far the easiest way to get business.
Hey, we're taking a little break in the show to make sure you know about Farmers and Merchants Bank of Ashland. Not many banks have been around for 139 years, but Farmers and Merchants Bank of Ashland has. And why? Because they offer full-service business banking, and you'll always speak to a live human being when you give them a call at Farmers and Merchants Bank of Ashland. They're commercial lenders. They are more than happy to share their expertise and to help you navigate any business financing that you may need, including SBA, TIF, or Nedco financing. So go to fmnb.com. Right below me, you're going to see that website, or give them a call at 402-944-3316. Member FDIC, and equal housing lender. So let's talk about Rooferees. You said you branded it Rooferees. So where did that come from? I mean, I think I know the tie-in, but tell me a little bit about what inspired it.
Well, what it really inspired it was I was doing a mediation with a couple of companies that were in mediation in a lawsuit. And the judge said to me, you're kind of like a rooferee. And I was like, wow, that's pretty good. And Trent in our office, and we talked about it, and I was like, that's really good. So that's where we branded the Rooferees, and it ties well. Now, it ties well, but when it came down to that game in 2017 that the Kentucky and now that it went to the opposite way. Now they could Google my name real quick, and it brought up Rooferees, and next thing you know, they went to our website, which is rooferees.com. That took our, they went to Google and gave it, our ratings was like 4.8, 4.9, took it to 1.1 overnight. Mm-hmm. We had more ratings than Target and Walmart and all that in one day. Of course, they're all fake stuff. And now we've been, ever since 2017, we've tried to build our way back out of that Google, because you can't get them off.
Right.
You just can't get them off. Doesn't matter. Like we had one the other day that put some on there. It's not a true customer.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a jealousy thing or if it's what it is, but it's something that, drives you nuts. But people know in our area who we are, what we're about, and that we're trustworthy companies.
Yeah, and by the way, let me just set that up. 2017, you're calling a basketball game. Kentucky loses, some fans upset, and you got, my understanding is, over 3,000 calls to the office that day,
at minimum,
right?
Minimum, yeah.
And that's what I want to ask you about. This is crisis management, crisis leadership. You had to jump in immediately. This was unforeseen.
Yeah.
How did you walk through that? Because you don't have a crisis team on site.
No, we don't.
So walk me through what you did to just deal with it with your employees, with, of course, obviously, the integrity of your business.
My wife, my family, yeah.
Yeah.
Some of my employees have no idea about basketball. Don't know anything about it. Don't really care about it.
That's probably fine, really nice, right?
Which is great. But they wondered why there was a Sarpy County Sheriff sitting in front of my office. Well, the FBI had came in that day because we got so many phone calls and threatening phone calls and emails that, we called the Douglas County Sheriff. Next thing you know, they called the FBI because they're, coming from outside. And now they got an FBI guy sitting in our office answering phone calls. And so, we just got them together and said, listen, this is what happened. You shouldn't have anything to worry about. They're like, do we need to, what do we need to do? We're going to stop business, whatever. I said, no, we weren't going to do that. But I said, just go along your day. If there's anything out of crazy, just let us know or call the police. So, it was a tough couple of weeks at that point.
And how long did it go on?
It still goes on. I still get blamed for Kentucky losses today. And now that I'm a retired referee, they'll probably still blame me. They'll blame the referees, that's for sure. But it went on for really hard for about a month, 2 months, and then it kind of wandered off a little bit. But even to this day, we still get them. It doesn't matter if I don't referee their games anymore, and I haven't. But that was a crazy moment. And when my son came home, he was little, And he said, and he asked, because kids were talking, because parents were talking, obviously, and asked if somebody's trying to kill Dad.
Oh,
that was like, oh, that's really hard.
Yeah.
That was really hard. So that and my wife was really, really, really upset. And it was tough. You know, we had a unpublished home phone. Of course, we don't have that anymore.
Right.
And that was really scary time. But it was some of the things I can't repeat what they said on our home phone and our business phone. And well, you can go on Google and see what some of the people put out there. It was just absolutely crazy over a basketball game that I had nothing to do with on the game. Besides, I had to come out of my area. I was with a couple of younger guys. I had to come out of my area and get 3 or 4 calls that were tough calls. They went against Kentucky, but they got them all right. Obviously, you got them right because they went to the Final Four that year. Mm-hmm. So, and I had a security guard 24/7 and it was a guy that took care of security for Michael Jordan when he would come to that area, Phoenix.
Yeah.
He was my security guy for 24/7 for 2.5 days I was there, and they gave us different names. Our whole family had different names.
Wow. At the hotel. Yeah.
Anybody got 25 foot of me, the guy shut him down real quick. It was crazy. It was a crazy time, but we got through it, and it was tough for that time period, but it's gotten better and better. Now, we did lose some business from people because they thought, I was a bad guy because of supposedly these calls, but it was.
To live through that, I mean, I can't even imagine it, especially the way it affected your family.
Oh, yeah.
But you showed some kind of steely moxie through this, because for you to just go into your, I'm assuming, calm. You were calm.
Yeah.
Your demeanor was calm.
Yeah.
Anyone that goes through I can't even imagine most people going through anything like this, but every company has a little bit of a crisis at some point.
Yeah.
Your advice to them, walk me through it. I mean, you were jumped in, thrown into this in a millisecond. So what would it be?
I would say stay disciplined, like I said earlier. Stay tough. Stay true to your beliefs of what you got, and you'll get through it. Mm-hmm. You just have to really be strong and have good surrounding people around you. Like my wife wanted me to quit refereeing just because of that. You just wanted out of the spotlight. And I said, I'm not gonna let them do what they want to happen is me to quit. And I wasn't going to do that. So that's I got through it. And there's a great group of referees that are they're our business partners. That helped me through it. And that was I had great bosses. I had a bunch of really good guys that were on my back. So that was great.
Yeah. Another thing that I want to talk about this is how you fought, because a lot of business owners, you mentioned it, Google reviews are out there. I own 2 staffing businesses, and sometimes we'd get a review where they would just flat out be wouldn't even be truthful. They'd say we hadn't offered them a job and we'd offered them 3, and we tracked everything. And so often business owners are just like, I'm going to put my hands up and we'll move on. And sometimes that's the best thing. But you fought a lawsuit. You also came out, you talked to the press, you said, here's what's going on. Talk to me a little bit about the, inspiring business owners to make sure they fight. When something's said about your business, this is your business, this is your livelihood, this is serious stuff. And a lot of times people don't understand that, how much work and sweat and toil you have invested in this. And so the ability and obviously the initiative to fight, talk a little bit about that, how important that is to businesses.
Well, yeah, it's extremely important. And you got to be truthful to yourself. You got to be the referral part of it really helps. Will really help you, and you got to reach out to some people too for some support and help, because we did that. We went to people. Hey, can we get? We went to a lot of our customers and that knew the truth, knew what we were all about, and we had them help us with Google reviews, and then when we were bidding jobs for commercial customers. And most of the commercial customers were great. They knew the story. But when people had a question in their mind, we would have customers that we had make phone calls for us. Mm-hmm. So again, we tied it as like we were family. We're family to our customers, And we had people make phone calls on our behalf that, hey, this stuff that they said is not true. So it took a long that year was tough. It took time for us to dig out of that part, but at the end of the day, it probably was good for us to go through this for our myself. It was. I mean, it was tough in the beginning, obviously, for 4, 5, 6 months, but we grow stronger, and our guys and our people were like, screw them. We're gonna fight to the end, and we'll get there. And eventually, we got there, and he turned the corner, and next thing you know, we're getting referrals from Ohio and Tennessee and that kind of stuff. So that's developed, in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
So it's just you got to persevere and be tough and strong and stay to your core values and your beliefs, and I think you'll be fine.
Yeah. Let's talk about, I said we had a lot of ground to cover in this interview because obviously we mentioned earlier 9 Final Fours you call, 2 national championships, a great career in the officiating world. But now you're stepping down and you're going to run.
I had one in Division II, also championship.
Championship. Who played in that, by the way? Do you remember?
A team from California and team from,
Yeah, I'm testing your memory
team
here.
from Kentucky. And it was in Louisville, Kentucky. I remember that.
Yeah. So how many years did you do D2 before you moved into D1?
Well, I worked D2 and Division I same time for 3, 4, 5 years. And then once I got to that point, I got to the 1 year I worked the national championship. I was asked to. I worked the first round of the NCAA at Division I, and then they asked me to go standby in the NCAA Division I tournament. I'm like. So I called the guy. I said, "Hey, you want me to go standby?" I went to the Division I. You want me to go standby? I'll do that in the second round, which is a huge. I mean, it was early on in my career. It was huge. And he says, "No, I want you to go work the national championship." I said, "Okay." So I went to work in the Division II national championship, and that's helped me ever since.
I think I know the answer to this, but was the intensity just as big in a D2 national championship as any D1 game?
The pressure at that point, it felt that because you're on CBS. It was like my first time I was ever on a big national stage, really, during the middle of the day. And I can remember when I got home from the game, a bunch of my friends and family were at the airport waiting for us. This is before 9/11, obviously. But they were walked off the plane, they had signs and stuff, and that, congratulations and that kind of stuff. But the intensity was there to me. Now, there wasn't 70,000 people in the arena like a national championship game or a Final Four game, but there was 5, 6, 7,000 people, and you felt that. You felt that pressure and that. But once you get into those games, it's just like another game, and it's you're on a cloud when you first walk in. But
I think you had the perfect upbringing to be a big-time basketball official because you grew up in a tough neighborhood where people took care of each other, and that included maybe a little discipline from here and there. But when you look back on it, why were you built not only to be an official? There's a lot of officials, but an official who achieved 9 national semifinals, 3 national championship games. What do you think when you look back on it? Why were you built for that?
Well, probably because I was the youngest boy in our family. And in the area, and my mom and dad were really tough. They were tough on you, and they worked, and you watch them work, and you watch your brothers and sisters work, and you watch your buddies, mom and dad work, and all the kids worked. Everybody worked, and that's what you did. You just had to work, and no matter what you did, it doesn't matter. You're going to work hard to achieve what you're going to achieve, and that was. Once I got into it, I was like that. Of course, your goals change. And when I first got into refereeing, I had no idea I was going to be a Division I referee. Zero idea.
So that was not the plan.
No, it wasn't my plan originally.
Accidentally, kind of fall on your lap, or
well, once I got to, I remember getting hired in the Metro Conference. I thought that was the biggest thing in the world. I thought, wow, this is unbelievable. I'm in the Metro, and then I got brought into this. They had the Metro's finest club. So all the veteran referees here in Omaha took me in, Harry Forehand and Mike Peters and J.D. Burks. And And I mean, all these, Mike Culver and all these guys, they had this group called the Metro's Finest. I still wear this shirt under my referee shirt to this day.
So that was a big moment.
It was a huge moment
yeah.
in my life. And I can remember, I never worked a state championship or state tournament in Nebraska. And I can remember Harry Forehand, I'm in the locker room, and we're working a district game, and the guy that ran the NSAA asked my guy, and this is the first year I got into not Division I, but college. I was working NAI, small college, and then high school stuff. And it was my first year I was eligible for work state tournament. And I heard him say, if you don't get the kid now, you'll never get him. And that next year I got hired into Division I basketball, and I never worked a state tournament in the state of Nebraska.
Isn't it? Well, I'll tell you what, I saw that you've been doing a few AAU games.
Yeah, I do it with my son.
Yeah, so are you doing it
giving back
for him?
Well, him and a bunch of, we need officials.
Yes.
Officials are they're beat up. They're people don't want to get into it because of the fans and the coaches and the AAU stuff. It's out of control. So I'm trying to help kids and help people to get into it, and then to try to mentor these kids that, hey, this is not as bad as you think it is. Now, it can be bad if you let it be that way. But again, you got to be tough.
Yeah. What do you mean by that, though? If you let it, you're saying take control of the game.
You got to take control of the game. You have to have control of a basketball game, no matter what level it's at. Mm-hmm. And people know, coaches know, players know, fans know if you're weak. They know it. They can in the college level. They'll go after the weak official every single time. They know who's tough. They won't go after you 9 times out of 10. Mm-hmm. So they can smell that weakness. You see it in the lower levels. I talk to my son and his buddies that are starting refereeing. Do not let anybody get on your skin. There's a line to cross. Once they cross it, you need to tell them to stop. It doesn't matter, and it's hard for a young kid to do that to a parent that's 30 years old, 35 years old, and you're 16, 17, 18. That's hard. But they have to. It's a great teaching moment for those kids too. At 16, 17, 18 years old, it's a great teaching moment. First of all, how to handle yourself in a situation like that with a parent, or even with the coach, or what have you, and with the player. It's great conflict resolution. Doing a job like that. If you talk to any basketball coach, football coach, the people that they want to hire, like team managers, because they'll referee their games, and they know conflict resolution stuff. They learn time management. Those are the guys. You ask any head coach, any basketball coach out there, football, they want to hire those kind of guys. And referees are the same way.
So who taught you that? I mean, here you are, you're pretty sought after as a high school official, right? Then you go into D1. I know when you said to me earlier, hey, I am a workhorse, no doubt. But there is so much more that's going on when you're officiating a basketball game. I mean, it's mental. It's so mental. Yeah. You're not just calling, hey, the ball went off his fingertip and it's Rutgers' ball.
Right.
The mental part of it, who taught you that? Where do you think that got instilled?
I think probably my dad from sports.
As a coach,
yeah. I saw that. And early on in my career, I would have him go to games like at Drake and Northern Iowa and Iowa State, and on the way home, he would tell me all the things I did wrong. I'm like, Dad, okay, you're supposed to be on my team, not on everybody else's team. But I learned a lot of that from my dad. I think. Yeah, I did.
Obviously, you've just stepped down after an incredible career. You're going to run the Western Basketball Officiating Consortium. Where you are going to develop, you are going to hire and train officials. Pac-12's in that consortium and 5 other conferences as well. So what was appealing to you about that at this time in your career?
Well, I'm not getting any younger. There's not much else you could do in basketball. Your goal to get if you're in college, you're going to stay in college. Would be to work the Final Four, and that's your goal. And I worked 9 of them. They approached me in Houston and asked me if I'd be interested, and I thought, my wife has been after me to quit for the last 4 or 5 years. So I thought, yeah, I'll listen to you. So we had a conversation, and they asked me, to apply, or to, we're going to meet with you in a couple of weeks on a Zoom call. So we did that, and then had another one, and they offered me the job. The commissioners called and offered me the job, and I thought, do I really want to do this? And other people that were applied had probably, they've done these things in the past, or they have Division II experience or Division III, NAI, whatever, of assigning. I didn't have any of that. I didn't have any of that, but I did have business experience, and I talked to them about time management and being, how I manage, the roofing company and the properties company, and how I do that. And I think that's probably how I received the offer. But, turned 62. I'm not getting any younger. I had a hip replaced 3 years ago, which is like getting an oil change or a engine replaced. It's like, now it's the best thing since sliced bread. And it was a pretty simple process, but you just don't know when the next thing's going to happen. And, you don't know. These jobs don't come open very often. The guy that I replaced been at the job for 30 years. He came off the court at 50. And they're going to pay me decently for it. And I agreed upon it.
I think the legacy, too, that you can leave. I mean, you're going to leave an incredible legacy already with Weatherguard and your tenure as an official. But now you get the chance. I mean, here's a guy that's going out and working AAU games to help some young kids in the Nebraska, Iowa area. This legacy that you're going to leave now as WBC, wow. I mean, what an opportunity for you. And did that play a role at all when you think about that?
Because it did. Yeah. I think we need help in that part, especially in the western part of the country. It seems to be. We just haven't had the people get to the Final Four, which is going to be a goal of mine. Not just get to the Final Four, because it's really hard to get there. They take 9 guys to referee the game. So 9 out of 900 is a pretty small percentage, right?
Right.
But my goal is to get guys to the second weekend. My guys is to train, first of all, train, develop, teach these kids how to become that next Kip Kissinger or John Higgins or whoever you want to take. That's my job. That's my goal, and I think we can get there. It's not going to be easy, but I think I got a really good team that I put together behind me, which I trust all the guys that I put on our team. I got guys that I've refereed with, and guys that are really good business people that have that same kind of skill. I think that I would look for. So I put together a really good team, and that's big. Will be key for me.
Yeah, this isn't a rubber stamp position for you. I mean, you've gone in and you've already established what it sounds like some metrics, right? We want to get more people, more officials advancing in the NCAA. More people probably even doing the tournament, right? Just out of the gate.
Yeah.
So what did you do when you got this opportunity? How did you sit down and say, all right, here are my priorities, and let me look at this, and because there's so many arms to this job, from developing, hiring, training, right?
I didn't realize all the friends I was going to develop in the referee business. I didn't realize all the phone calls I was going to get and how people could help me. But I looked at the roster. We have a lot of people on the roster. There's 167 guys on our team that I'll be in charge of. But I have to, make some decisions on, firing, hiring. I reached out to a bunch of guys that I trust that I've refereed with in the past, NCAA type guys that haven't come from outside the primary area, and to bring them there. And I got 22, 23 guys that kind of going to put their trust in me that they're going to come out referee for me, which is a huge deal. Anytime you get that NCAA badge on your chest, you're believable, and you're good. You're better than other guys. So I'm bringing 22, 23 guys out. Now we had a camp about 2-3 weeks ago that to identify guys that have a chance to get to a level. So I'm going to hire some guys out of that, and then we also there's guys on our staff that I have never seen referee, because I normally would work the higher profile, higher games in the West Coast part of the country. I didn't know the other guys, so I watched these guys at this camp and evaluated those guys. So my job is to train, teach, and develop. First identify and try to move these guys forward, and with my team to teach them these kind of things. And now it's going to be difficult, but it will come over time. I believe it. There's some really good young guys out there that they look the part, they act the part. Now, once you get under the bright lights in a basketball game, any kind of setting like that, it can be a different story. Guys can be great in practice, but it comes to game time, that a shot just doesn't finish right. They just same thing, in a golf course or wherever.
Yeah.
But you got to give those kids the opportunity to see if they can be the next guy that has a chance to get to the Final Four.
Yeah. Clearly, it says a lot about the trust that you have developed with people, that 23 folks are going to come over and help you and help the WBOC because of your involvement, which is saying something. You also talk about trust. I know that there's so many coaches. We talked about earlier the bad experience, but my golly, so many coaches have said great things about you. I know Tom Izzo had said some great things, and many others. But I got to ask you a couple of basketball questions. If you don't want to go here, you don't have to tell me. But the first one here,
I'm not a referee. That's okay. Good. I'm off the court.
All right. Well, the first one is, what are you going to miss most when you walk into that arena? The lights are going, big game, full crowd. Whether it's an NCAA game or just a big late-season conference game, what are you going to miss most about that experience?
Probably that feeling when you walk in, you just get that thrill in your body, and then making the tough call against the home crowd that gets after you. That's kind of fun to do. And the camaraderie that you have with your officials, although I'll still have some of that now, being in this job, because I'll still be around the guys, the referees, and because we're just, it's a brotherhood. It's because it's just us.
Yeah.
It's us, not us against them, but we're the only people that think we're any good. The fans, none of us, whoever wins, the fans think you're great, and then whoever loses, the fans think you're a bum.
Yeah.
So, I'll miss that part of it. It just that feeling that you get, really, that you walk in. It's like when you walk into. I remember walking in the first Final Four I worked. You just kind of pinch yourself thinking, wow, there's 70,000 people. And, of course, the first time I worked one, a guy said, don't worry, no pressure, just 70,000 people and like 70 million watching on TV. I'm like, oh, yeah. Thanks a lot. But there's no feeling like it when you walk into a sporting event and you're in control of this game. And that's what I'll miss about it all.
Yeah. Toughest crowd. Toughest venue consistently to go in and officiate.
Boy. There's a lot of them.
Yeah.
New Mexico. Oklahoma State when it was full. West Virginia. Obviously Kentucky. There's so mmany venues that can be great venues around the country. Kansas is a tough. I mean, it's not tough. It's a great environment.
Yeah.
There and Cameron Indoor are probably the two best as far as atmospheres go. They can all be tough.
Yeah.
It just depends on the games.
All right, one more here. Tell me about a coach that made life easy for you. Everyone always wants to know the toughest coach, right? But was there a coach or two that you thought, hey, they may get on me, but they're going to be fair about their comments, and we can have a disagreement without it getting crazy? Or is that a lot of them?
That's a lot of them. Probably one of them. I mean, back in the day, he didn't like me. Then he liked me. Then he didn't like me at the end. But that was Bob Knight. At one time, I was one of his supposedly his guys. And then I threw him out at Texas Tech at a game in front of his guys, like Bill Parcells and those guys, Jim Leland. Those guys were in the crowd. It was Louisiana Tech, and I had to whack him, and it was not. From that point on, it went.
Yeah.
But you know what? He played mind games with everybody. He was a great coach. I mean, he was obviously a tremendous teacher. Sad to how it all ends, but he was not bad. Bill Self's always been a man's man. Bob Huggins is a guy that been tough, but he's not terrible. And I know that's kind of ended on a sad note for him. But Tom Izzo is one of the best out there. He can be tough as nails and like a pit bull over there on the sideline, but at the end of the day, he's a good dude.
You know, I got one last. We'll wrap with this. The Bob Knight story, and you've probably heard this because it came from a Division I basketball official, but he was calling a game of Bob Knight's, and the game wasn't going well for Coach Knight, and all of a sudden, out of a timeout, they were down about 20. I don't know if he was at Texas Tech or Indiana, but kid comes out, and he's standing next to the official, and everywhere that official went, the kid just stood next to him. So he turns to the kid, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Coach Knight said to guard the guy that's hurting us the worst tonight, and that's you."
Not shocking. That's not shocking.
Yeah.
That's probably a true story.
Classic Bob Knight. Yeah. Well, listen, you're a classic. I appreciate you so much. And this has been an incredible hour we spent. And congratulations on the new position and a great career, too.
Thank you.
All right.